this awesome opportunity. She said, would you like a solo show? And I said, sure. She said, can't we both rooms? And I said, sure. And got in the car and went, what are you thinking? But it was a great opportunity to challenge myself because I wanted to do 2 separate books in 2 separate rooms. And kind of want to talk about my philosophy first, that I do lay out a palette, and then I just paint loose and free, and I don't expect anything. Nothing is deliberate, because you can always paint over it. You know? And I paint with no expectations, and it's kind of weird because sometimes I feel guided. There's an instinct that comes through that kind of takes over, and it's like the painting. I try not to think about what I'm doing because when I do, it just goes to whatever. And but I kind of feel like some of the paintings are already being painted for somebody, that they relate to the titles or the colors, and once I finish the painting, I just kind of sit there and stare at it. And pretty soon, I get this thought of what it wants to be called. So anyway, this room, Spaces, I wanted to challenge myself to a light palette, but that most of them had to have black in them. And I used a lot of different brushes. The first one down there, the space between us, was the first one I did. And I have this, where did it go? I have this little tiny palette knife that I mix colors with. And Nicholas Wilton, I don't know, most of you know who that is, he has mixed a white called Lilas White that was for his daughter who was having a ballet recital. And he wanted something that was really kind of warm and not a sweet hot white. So he mixed this titanium white, cadmium yellow light, which is kind of cool, and yellow ochre, which is kind of warm. And so I'm mixing this, and he used tiny bit of ochre and yellow. And I got a big glob on my palette knife when I did that on that painting, and I went, I've never painted with a palette knife before. So a lot of them have a lot of palette knife in it, which was kind of fun. And so I tried, I did some landscapes, but I tried not to think about it. And then I got to that point where, well, at some point, you have to start thinking about all the stuff you're taught, composition, and balance, and all of that. So I looked at it and I said, flowers? Really? Okay, I'll go with flowers. And it got to be really fun, picking out the flowers. And then I got this brush, and there's a landscape somewhere that, oh, it's over behind Abby. It has those little circles in it. And it was just, I had so much fun with this brush, and then I just started thinking about different kind of brushes and tools. So when I start, I kind of skipped around. When I start, I put the gesso on with this big palette knife. And some of them have white gesso underneath, and some have black. So I don't know if you all know of Heidi Young, who is out of Denver, and she loves her winter garden. It's full of seed pods. she does this beautiful, they're India ink, and then she comes back and pulls some of the ink off, and they're just lovely. So I did that one, and it looked like it had seed pods in it, so I made that one Heidi's Garden. And then I thought about, okay, winter's gone, now spring is coming, and I did one that was flowers reaching for the sun. And then the final one in that series was the flowers will always bloom. You know, no matter what, all this craziness that's going on, and all the spaces, the negative spaces, the flowers are still gonna bloom. You know? In the other room, the Hōyō room, I researched different languages because I wanted to do say hug, but not in English. And I found this Japanese Hōyō. And then I wanted to continue to relate this theme of all this craziness that's going on in there. And everybody knows I'm a hugger, and not to be able to hug people was just awful. And then I said, okay, I think I'm going to do this 9-panel piece. And I told somebody, and then it was like, oh, I gotta do it now. And I had no idea how I was going to pull this off. And so I laid them out 3 across at the top, and couldn't figure out how I was going to connect them. And so then I realized that I could paint the colors across. And then I found my X-Acto knife and scribbled down through it, because those are all black underneath. So I made lines through there to kind of connect them all together. And I knew I wanted all the black at the top. But then I thought I've got to anchor it at the bottom, so that's why it's orange at the bottom. But once I got into it, it was really fun. And in a couple of places I have where I've painted, especially on the blue ones, I thought, I got to do some blue ones because people like the blue ones. But I put on, it's orange underneath, and then I put on this 5-line resist, which is kind of rubbery, and I just scribbled on there, and then painted over it. And it's like Christmas, you never know what you're going to get when you pull the stuff off. So that was kind of fun. And then I also used this what you line kitchen drawers with. And I could pick up like orange over here, and then go over here and put it on the white, which was kind of fun. And I used, this is a Wilton cake decorating tool. And I love these. It makes, you can take it and pull it, and it makes little square lines. And I also have this, it's a block of acrylic that you dip in water, and then you can draw with it. And if you smudge it, it will go down into the textured parts and really pull them out. So that was fun. And this is the brush that I mostly use for a lot of stuff. When I'm not using palette knives. I almost brought my shirt that I paint in, because I've been in Honey's studio and it is pristine. And you walk into my studio, you get paint on you. Oh. And then sometimes I use, these are Sennelier oil pastel. So in some of them, if you see a real bright little section of orange or lime green, but then you have to be, and then you can come back and scrape through that and get a really super effect. because the color's going to. You have to be careful because it takes a long time to dry, and you've got to seal it somehow. You just kind of have to like dab at it with the polymer. And I use mostly golden acrylics, but I also use Liquitex. And in some of the paints, you'll see that some of the white is shiny and so the Liquitex is shiny. And then at the end, I have this bottle of, what do you call this?
Indian ink.
But it's acrylic ink, isn't it?
Yeah.
And it's waterproof, right?
Yeah. And you can just, it's got a little applicator and you can just, some of them in there you can see have squiggly lines.
Mm-hmm.
And that's from that. You know, I kind of want people to look at my work and say, what came first? You know, how did you do that? Because I can look at stuff I did and there's no way I can do it. Ronnie has one that I wish I could, I'm going to go in there one day and steal it. I love it so much. I have tried and tried to replicate anything even close to it. But I want people to be drawn in to the piece. And for them to try to figure out, you know, what came first. You know, there's so many layers. And I will spritz it with alcohol. I use a lot of spritzed alcohol. And if you let the alcohol dry and then you come back with a paper towel and kind of like blot it, you'll get little dots. Or I'll spray, one day I said, wonder what would happen if I sprayed alcohol and then water. And it did some really cool stuff. You know, I love it when people connect to the work because I just love to paint, and I just feel like, you know, if it connects to somebody and they want to live with it, I mean that's a huge compliment. So that's my spiel. Yeah.